usually for yourself in the future. Okay, I put this project to rest for a while. It's going to run in production for a while. Then you come back to the project and you have no idea what fields are exposed here and there. With GraphQL, because it has types, it has type definition at its core, you can be sure how things will look like, and you can make sure that there are no programmatical errors on either side of the pipeline, on the back end, on the front end. It doesn't really matter. You can validate both, and then you can be sure how your data looks like at any time. I just wanted to mention this GraphQL APIs. I mentioned there are a bunch of open GraphQL APIs that are already available for you to try it out. And I would recommend you taking a look and just fire up a Create React app, pull in a Polo, and then you can play around with it. You can write your own queries against it, just like I did, and you can learn some new stuff, which is always cool. And GraphQL is going to be useful in an organization if you have any kind of relational data that you'd like to query. And it's not just, and what I would like to emphasize right now, it's not just for the hugely relational data that, for example, Facebook has, and they built this tool just because they wanted to have like a graph query language. But it's not just useful for the kind of graph data that you have, but it is also useful for small businesses for all the reasons I mentioned already. And if you want to optimize for any reason, you want to optimize payload size, GraphQL gives it to you for free. And if you want to have like a self-documenting, self-discoverable, if you don't really like writing documentation, but you want to have like a cool IDE to play around with, that's basically for free if you're using a Polo or all the tooling that's around GraphQL already. And if you want to allow your users to freely compose queries, that's also a good benefit. And you want some happy engineers on your team, like Vera and Ferry and Mr. Manager, who's really happy about some stuff. And that's basically GraphQL in a nutshell, introductory talk. So I hope you liked it, and thanks for coming. Any questions?
Hi, Peter. Can you tell us something about GraphQL subscriptions and how to use it to get live updates of data?
No. I didn't want to include, so basically, this is an introductory talk. I didn't want to go so deep into the rabbit hole because that's like, there are a bunch of stuff. I have some examples. I have some more advanced, one more advanced example that I really didn't want to like go through, play around with. Right now, it's included in the repo. You can check it out. There's no subscription, but contributions are always welcome. Any other questions?
So, can I ask that it's not a problem that you expose your schema over the network, so this can be used as an attack against you?
You can have any kind of authentication layer sitting on top of it. But the schema definition itself is, if you put it like behind an authentication, like any sort of authentication, again, it's transport layer agnostic. So if you use it like so if you're using it over HTTPS, if you're using it like with a token, for example, you have HTTP under it. So it's basically all the tools that you have in HTTP are there to use, and it's just a layer on top. So it doesn't really care about how you would like to authenticate. It's not always going to be publicly available. You can just secure it in a way that you would just secure any other kind of web app in general.
Hi, thank you. Actually, just to complete your example, when you rewrite the REST to GraphQL, you demonstrated create the user, you demonstrated query the user, and my question is, how would you edit the user? In that case, would you just put every fields on the input, or just some of them, or what's the best practice for this?
So, as I mentioned, there are the mutations. Mutations will work. Mutations don't really care about what they do. They are validating the input. So, with the mutation, if you go back, with this same mutation type, what you would do instead of the create, we could create like a user input type. This would be the user. Sorry. This would be the user create input type. Just rename that. And you see that there's a GraphQL non-null over there. Very important. You can define the same schema and then make all fields optional. And as you make all fields optional, it's not going to apply the validation, and then you can do whatever you'd like with it. So you can make all the fields optional, and all the fields that are present on the request, you can update them. And then you can make, you know, an ID that's required, and then all the fields are then going to be optional, and then you just update the ones that are present on the request.
And if one field is not presented, how do you know that that field is not filled, or it was deleted?
So you'd like to represent a way, you'd like to have a way to represent a missing, so like null. I think it does have null, by the way. Because it's Visual Studio Code and it's so cool. What we can do, control space different development, GraphQL, null. Does anyone know if it exposes null? But I get the question. It's basically for how would you do such a thing when there's a field that you want to update in there. And I think you can define a type yourself that would basically represent something missing a value, like an enum, for example, that would have like either values or union types. There are a bunch of things you can use, but I'm pretty sure. Does anyone know if it has null built-in representation of missing value? It has. It has. It's called shout. Shout what it's called.
You don't need to have the type. You can just pass null.
You can just pass null and it's going to be fine. You can just pass null and it's going to be fine. Thank you.